Okay, let's go ahead and dive into cytoplasmic inheritance. So, obviously, super long word. Let's go ahead and break it down and try and figure out what this means. So, we can see in the second part of the word it says inheritance. So, that means that we're talking about passing something from parent to offspring. And that first word, cytoplasmic, if you look at the root of the word cytoplasm, we're talking about the cytoplasm of the cell. So, overall, we're looking at the inheritance of the cytoplasm or passing the cytoplasm from parent to offspring. And why would we even be interested in talking about the cytoplasm? It's because that's where all of our organelles are. And the reason this is important is because some of our organelles, like the mitochondria, as a really good example, has their own DNA. And if we have defects in this DNA, this can lead to disease, especially with your mitochondria. There are quite a few mitochondrial diseases due to defects in the mitochondrial DNA. So that means that if we have mitochondrial DNA in the parent cytoplasm, it can be passed to the offspring, and then they can have that mitochondrial disease. So the passing of cytoplasm from parent to offspring is super important. And we're going to talk about how this happens, but just as a spoiler alert, the cytoplasm always comes from mom. So mom is always going to pass any sort of cytoplasmic diseases, such as defect in the mitochondrial DNA, to her offspring. All right, so let's talk about what mitosis does versus cytokinesis. And keep in mind that both of these are splitting things up. So in mitosis, you're splitting DNA into two cells, so they look exactly the same. In cytokinesis, this is splitting the cytoplasm in two, and you're giving each cell about half of the organelles, about half of the cytoplasm. But cytokinesis doesn't care if it's putting a healthy one here, and then a healthy one here, and then a diseased one here, and a diseased one here, and trying to keep that all equal. They just care about the number of organelles. So they're going to send 5 mitochondria over here, 5 over here. It does not care what the condition of the organelles or the cell may be. And this is called replicative segregation, and we're going to talk about that more in a second. So, in replicative segregation, there are 2 types of cell you can have, heteroplasmic and homoplasmic. And a heteroplasmic cell, that means you have a mix of healthy and defective organelles. And whenever you split that cytoplasm in half, most likely they're not going to split up evenly. Maybe by chance they do, and you get half and half. But more likely is that you're going to have more diseased over here, more healthy over here, maybe all diseased over here, all healthy over here. So you could have cells from the parent cell that are completely diseased and cells that are completely healthy. So you could have a mom, if she's heteroplasmic, she could have a mitochondrial disease. She might not pass it to her offspring because that offspring happened to get all of her healthy mitochondria. So, as I've been saying, we're talking about mitochondrial DNA. And now we're going to look at this drawing to kind of see how it splits up. So imagine that blue is healthy in this image and your red are going to be your unhealthy. So in these 3 parent cells right here, you can see that there's always 4 blue and 4 red. And I showed a couple different ways that these could be split up during cytokinesis, where we split one cell into 2 cells to show you how different mitochondria can be split up and how you could end up with a totally healthy or totally unhealthy cell. So in this first example, this would be more of the idealized version of what happens in cytokinesis, where we're splitting everything up evenly, including splitting up the condition evenly. But remember, cytokinesis is more about splitting up the number evenly and not necessarily the condition. So looking at this next image in the middle, you still have 4 on each side. So the number is still the same. It's still split it evenly, but the condition is not, because we have that cell on the left that's mostly healthy. There is one unhealthy in there, but it's mostly healthy, where the cell on the right is pretty unhealthy. And then this last image, again, the cells that come from it each have 4 mitochondria. So it's still splitting evenly in amount, but now we have a cell that's totally healthy, could go to a totally healthy kid, and a cell that is unhealthy, which could end up, and keep in mind that now if I'm talking about passing to a kid, it's more talking about meiosis rather than mitosis. But that could go into a kid, and then that kid would have some sort of mitochondrial disease. So this is replicative segregation, where you can have it split up in different ways, and you don't necessarily know how it's going to be. So, as I said, we're talking about meiosis. So, we know in meiosis, one cell is going to form 4 cells. So let's go back to that same image where we have 4 healthy and 4 diseased, and look at how that could be split up. We have some cells that are totally healthy, such as the 2 blue, some that are totally diseased, and some that are half and half. And this is going to affect the offspring. If the offspring has the totally diseased mitochondria, they're going to have that mitochondrial disease. If they have the totally healthy mitochondria, then they'll be healthy in terms of their mitochondria, and they won't have any issues there. So whenever the egg is formed in women from whatever parent cell, it can be split up in different ways. The cytoplasm can be split up in different ways, and each one will be different, not only in terms of what genes are there, but also what's in the cytoplasm. What are the organelles like? All right, so I've been talking about how the cytoplasm always comes from the mom. And why is that? Why doesn't the dad contribute to cytoplasmic inheritance? And this is because of what the fertilization process looks like. So during fertilization, we all know that the sperm is going to penetrate the egg. And when that happens, the sperm is going to, you can think of it as popping, and it releases only the nucleus into the egg. So it's actually not contributing any cytoplasm, any organelles to the egg. It's only giving the nucleus, it's only given DNA. And on the off chance that mitochondria from the sperm are given to the egg, they will usually be broken down by the egg. So overall, that means that the cytoplasm of a zygote is only going to come from mom, because dad only contributes the nucleus. So dad is not giving any mitochondria, which is why we say cytoplasmic inheritance is passed from mom to offspring. All right, so we're going to kind of just wrap up everything we talked about to put everything together. So let's talk about what we've learned so far. We know that mitochondrial DNA exists in the cytoplasm, and it can have defects. We also know that if we have a heteroplasmic cell, and remember that heteroplasmic means you have a mix, when that cell undergoes meiosis, you're going to have some cells that are homoplasmic, meaning they have the same type of mitochondria, meaning they're all diseased or they're all healthy. And there'll be other cells resulting from that first heteroplasmic cell that are still heteroplasmic. They still have a mix of healthy and diseased mitochondria. We also learned that the egg contributes to the cytoplasm of the zygote completely, and the sperm does not. So all cytoplasm, and through that, all mitochondria come from the egg. So if a mom has diseased mitochondria, her offspring will have those diseased mitochondria, which means that organelles are always passed from mother to offspring. So if we have an offspring that has a mitochondrial or some sort of cytoplasmic disease, we know they're going to get that from their mom, and that is cytoplasmic inheritance. And as a last point, we talked a lot about what happens with the heteroplasmic cell, how you can have a mix of different cells from it. So if we have a mother that is heteroplasmic, she could have offspring that have healthy mitochondria, she could have offspring that have diseased mitochondria, and she can have offspring that have a mix. So there's a lot of variability in how that cytoplasm is passed from mother to offspring, but it will always be passed from mother to offspring. All right, and that is the end of cytoplasmic inheritance.
I hope you found this video really helpful. The concepts and information presented in these videos will be true no matter what genetics class you are taking. However, the concepts presented in this video are referencing material currently covered in Baylor University's coursework. Remember, if you are currently enrolled as a Baylor student, we offer free tutoring services. Our tutoring center is located on the first floor of the Sid Richardson building. You will find all the details you need to know about these services on our website, www.baylor.edu/tutoring. You may schedule a free 30-minute one-on-one tutoring session online through Navigate, or just drop in during our open business hours. For more information about our current services, please visit our website. Thank you.